Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning and probate attorney, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. We're here to empower women who value their health, wealth, and the legacies they're creating. This podcast delves into a diverse range of subjects encompassing finance, law, mental and physical health, and beyond. Our commitment is to furnish you with invaluable insights, engaging expert interviews, and enlightening episodes that address your questions on wills, estate planning, and probate matters. Remember, this is your community, and we want to hear from you. Engage with us, ask questions, suggest topics. Let's build a dialogue. Reach out to us on social media or leave us a comment below. Your input fuels the conversations we have. You can find all of our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our upcoming content. We appreciate your support, and if you enjoy the podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Your review helps amplify our reach and brings our content to more listeners. And now, on with the podcast. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. It's great to have you here again. Joining me today, I have a very special guest, not only an incredible attorney professional, but also a friend. Aquanetta Betts is here, and let me tell you a bit about her. Aquanetta Betts is the founder and principal consultant of Johnson Betts, LLC, where she helps nonprofits, including faith-based organizations, grow their planned giving pipelines and collaborates with professional advisors and charitable individuals on effective giving strategies. She serves as director of planned giving at George Mason University and previously served as senior executive director of planned giving at World Vision for the Eastern United States. She is a licensed attorney in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. Aquanetta is a past president of the Chesapeake Planned Giving Council and has held leadership roles with the Baltimore Estate Planning Council, the National Capital Gift Planning Council, the National Bar Association's Real Property, Trust, and Estates section, the International Association of Advisors in Philanthropy, and the National Association of Charitable Gift Planners, where she serves on the advocacy committee as an assistant editor for the Journal of Charitable Gift Planning. She is a frequent speaker on topics of the great wealth transfer, heirs property, and charitable estate planning. Aquanetta holds the Accredited Estate Planner designation, Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy, Certified Fundraising Executive, and Impact Philanthropy Advisor designations. She earned her Juris Doctor from Nova Southeastern University Shepherd Broad College of Law and her Bachelor of Arts in English from Florida International University. Aquanetta began her professional journey as a flight attendant with American Airlines before pursuing law. She is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a native of Augusta, Georgia, and resides in Maryland. Welcome. Welcome, dear friend. It is so good to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here, and I am excited to share more about the amazing work that we can all be a part of in philanthropy. So thank you for having me.
Looking forward to it. And we have got a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. So when people hear the word philanthropy, many assume it's reserved for wealthy families. Why do you think that misconception still exists?
The misconception about philanthropy, charitable giving, philanthropist is often associated with ultra high net worth or high net worth individuals. We're thinking about some of the names that you see on buildings, names that they've been around for centuries. So we think of philanthropy that way. However, I'm here to share with you, and many of you already are aware, giving back, philanthropy is a part of many communities on a smaller scale. There are giving circles, there are mutual aid groups and societies that have been around forever. Communities that are often unrecognized or underserved, they've been giving back forever. It's just the title philanthropist that we often associate with very wealthy individuals. But that is so far from the truth. If you look up the root word of philanthropy, phila, love, giving back, generosity, it's a part of many communities and it has always been. So it's nothing new. It's just a way that we have associated wealth with philanthropy. I'll give you an example. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, for many years, she belonged to a social savings club, a group of women in our community in Augusta, Georgia. And for years, they would fundraise. They would host dinners on Saturdays. They would have folks from the community purchase these dinners. The funds that were raised, they would go into a collective pot and they would provide resources for other community members who perhaps lost a job. Someone was, for whatever reason, having a difficult time making ends meet. That collective pot of funds that the women raised would go to help others in the community. So I grew up around that sort of environment. Of course, they didn't call themselves philanthropists, but they certainly were philanthropic. So the word is really associated with very wealthy folks, but it does not give the full picture of what philanthropy really means.
Aquanetta, how do you then define charitable giving in a way that feels approachable and meaningful, especially for women like you and I, professional women?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I noticed years ago in my practice as an estates and trust attorney in Baltimore County, Maryland, I would have clients to come in on that very first visit. They had received the questionnaire and they would fill it out. There were a few questions on there about where they'd like to give back to, a cause or a mission that they were passionate about. Oftentimes they would fill that information in, sometimes they didn't. But when we would sit there at this initial meeting, and we hadn't really talked about charitable giving, but what I would see over and over was this list. It was usually a handwritten list. The client would pull the list either out of their shirt pocket or reach into their purse, and they would hand me this list of charities and nonprofits. And the list usually included, there was usually a church or faith-based institution or organization listed there. Oftentimes there were alma maters there. There was one school someone had attended when I believe she was in the 8th grade. And she wanted to figure out a way to give back to that particular school. There were, of course, sororities, there were fraternities, there were all sorts of other organizations that this list included. And I was actually just pleasantly surprised, and it really reinforced my appreciation for humanity. There's hope. We do want to give back. We want to help others. And so for women in particular, I kept seeing this repeat over and over. And I realized just how important giving back is. But oftentimes the issue comes up, we're not really thinking about giving back in this way. We haven't really had these conversations at the dinner table with our families. We were giving all along in our family history, our family background. It didn't have a formal or a strategy, a plan around our giving. So I think that's where the gap for women has been. It has been this ability to help others, but not really having that recognized as charitable giving. It was just something we would do. No one stopped to say, oh, you are very involved in charitable giving. We were just giving, we were helping others. So it's deeply embedded and ingrained in many of our families. So to continue giving, legacy giving in particular, we need to develop more of a conversation around it and also put the plan in place. It's not going to continue after our lifetime, beyond our lifetime, unless we have a plan for it. We want to give back, we want to do better. And one of the things that I have heard repeatedly from a lot of women, they'll say, I want to make sure my family is cared for. I don't want to take away anything from them. I want to make sure they have what they need, whatever I can provide to them, I want to do. My response to that is absolutely. You should take care of your family. If that's something you want to do, make that your main priority. Understand. But also recognize that there are some ways you can do that as well, take care of your family, and also include a charitable gift to your favorite cause or mission. So we can do all of those things. It's not one or the other. So I think that's some of the misconception, again, where you think, oh, maybe that life insurance policy that I have, it has to go 100% to my family. Maybe that is the case for you. Everybody's different. But you can also think about perhaps doing a 5% or a 10% portion of that life insurance policy. Have that designated to your favorite cause or your school, your university. So there are ways that it can be done and you can still take care of your family.
Aquanetta, just from listening to you, your family history, the environment in which you grew up around, all of that just fostered that giving nature, put you in the right mindset. So it's no surprise that you are in this space right now, because everything in your life, or a lot in your life, has led you to where you are now. So it's a natural fit. You mentioned the importance of supporting specific causes instead of just giving broadly, which is okay, obviously, if that's your wish. But why does that distinction matter?
Yes, I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with a woman a few months ago, actually, and she said at the beginning of the year, she goes through her list of charities and nonprofits that she likes to give to. And she said she has over 42 of them. And I thought, wow, that's obviously very generous of her. She wants to make sure she's giving back to all of these different organizations. And I asked a question. I said, is this really how you'd like to make your impact? Have you considered perhaps narrowing down that list to maybe a few that you're really absolutely passionate about and you want to make a more impactful gift? Perhaps if you take that list, focus on 2, 3, 4, or 5, perhaps, and you look at perhaps a larger amount going to fewer of those organizations. Perhaps you can form a scholarship. If you're narrowing down that list, you can see where your impact can help perhaps a student who perhaps may be challenged with staying in school because they don't have the resources from their family. Perhaps a scholarship would be helpful. But if you're spreading out all of your charitable giving through 42 different organizations, it's going to be hard for most people to see that sort of impact. That may be what works best for her, to give in that manner, spread out her giving to a bunch of organizations. But to be more impactful, to actually perhaps receive this great handwritten letter from a student who's received a scholarship, that really motivates and inspires a lot of people once you're able to see that sort of impact. So I do believe that focusing in on a few very close to your heart nonprofits to make larger, more focused gifts, I think for the individual who's doing the giving, it shows them how their impact is most helpful, as opposed to spreading out their giving to lots of different organizations.
And based on your professional experience working with clients, pardon me, are there causes that resonate with communities of color and or among professional women that you've observed?
Yes, that list, the list that what I would see when folks would come into the office, it would oftentimes include, I would see a lot of universities, colleges on there. I would say that was usually top of the list. There were professional schools, they were on there as well. Dental schools, law schools, medical schools. Someone maybe they earned their master's degree from a school. So you name the level, those schools were on there. And I mentioned before, there was someone who attended a private school in the 8th grade, and she wanted to make sure that school received a gift through her estate plan. Of course, universities, colleges, our fraternal organizations, our sororities were usually on there. Faith-based organizations were generally on there as well. If there were 3 or 4 organizations, those are probably going to be in the top 3 or 4. College, school, alma mater, some sort of organization that they belong to. And then, of course, they're faith-based. The other one that I would see quite a bit would be those organizations. It could be a health-related sort of organization or humanitarian, giving back food banks, that sort of thing, or some of your larger organizations that would help out in times of disaster relief. Those sorts of organizations were oftentimes on there. And I have had organizations listed, and I would ask about the connection. How are you connected to this particular organization? It may have been a lesser known organization. And I've received comments such as, oh, my uncle received care. He was going through some kidney related disorder or treatment. And I said, you've never been a part or received any sort of resources from this organization? And the answer was no. It was an organization that helped one of my family members. So that varies as to the types of organizations, but I have seen that quite a bit. Oftentimes it's not the actual individual making the legacy gift. It is related to someone else in their family who received services or care. So that giving back spirit, it includes a lot of different organizations, but on the top 3, I would certainly say university, college, sorority, and then faith-based, a church would be in the top 3.
Can you explain how beneficiary designations on, say, life insurance policies or financial accounts can become a part of a charitable giving strategy?
Absolutely. I will start off with, right now, it's one of my favorite ways to bring up charitable giving, and this is going to touch on a certain age group, individual retirement accounts. If someone is 70 and a half, there are some charitable giving components to individual retirement accounts. An individual who's 70 and a half can make a gift. It's called a qualified charitable distribution from their IRA account to a charitable organization, 501c3. That gift can go to the organization, and it's a non-taxable event for most people. So if you're 70 and a half and you're giving anyway to one of your favorite organizations and you have an IRA account, please consider using your qualified charitable distribution to do your giving. Of course, speak with your advisors about what that means to your particular situation or your particular IRA account. The other item I will share is also age related, is age 73. If you have an individual retirement account, there's a charitable giving component there as well. And this one is your required minimum distribution.
The RMDs.
Yes. So here's the thing. It doesn't matter what your wealth looks like. It doesn't matter whether you need that required minimum distribution. You may not have to even touch your IRA for living expenses. But that amount every year, once you hit 73, is going to come out. Government says it's coming out. You've held it in the IRA. Now it's going to come out of there. You will be taxed on that. However, there is a charitable giving component. If you're giving anyway, your required minimum distribution can go directly from your IRA administrator to your charity of choice, and that is not considered income to you. So if you're giving anyway, you may as well utilize that required minimum distribution to go to your charity of choice. It's not taxable to you. So those are some, while we're still very much around, that you can use those charitable giving options. Now, also with retirement accounts, including your IRA, for your legacy gift, you can designate your favorite cause, charity, nonprofit as a beneficiary of that very same IRA account. Again, we want you to think about taking care of your family, absolutely. And also know that an IRA account to a nonprofit is not taxed. If that IRA is inherited by a non-spousal beneficiary, there are some exceptions other than the spouse, but that will be a taxable event eventually to other beneficiaries. Your IRA will be. So if it's going to your nonprofit, it's not going to be taxable. Going to non-spousal beneficiaries, it will eventually be taxable. So keep that in mind. There may be better assets to give to other beneficiaries, like a life insurance policy. That may be a better option to give to other beneficiaries. You can also, again, I mentioned earlier, say do a 10% from your life insurance policy. You can pick your percentage and you can have that percentage to go to your favorite nonprofit while you're still leaving some of that to your family. So beneficiary designations are some of the easiest, or they're more simple oftentimes than other ways to do your charitable giving or your legacy giving. But I also want to point out, and you know all too well, we want to make sure that we are running all of these things by our advisors, attorneys, financial advisors. We want to make sure it makes sense for us in our particular situation. What may work for you may not work for me in my situation. So we have to be mindful of that as well.
That's so important that you said that, because obviously as a former estate planning attorney having a vibrant practice, you understand the importance of having all of these pieces aligned, right? So you can have your estate planning attorney draw up your will, your trust, your other estate planning documents. And yes, it's understood that for many of the people that you and I encounter, they are going to have these financial instruments, bank accounts, and so forth. So we need to make sure that everything is aligned, and to quote you, that everything makes sense in your overall plan. These things do not work in a vacuum. It's best as taking a very holistic look at everything
Yes.
that you own. So along those lines, what are some of the common mistakes people make when they fail to revisit beneficiary designations over time?
Yes, I actually put a smile on my face, and it's not a laughing matter at all. However, it just brings up all of these stories, which you, I'm sure, have some, but I could go on and on about the stories of folks not updating their beneficiary designations. And what happens when they fail to update these beneficiary designations? You name it. One I will share with you, which is a common one I hear quite often, is the former spouse. Someone was married for years, they divorce, they leave a spouse, the former spouse, on their beneficiary designations for an account. Perhaps it's life insurance. For whatever reason, they fail to update that. The person who had the life insurance policy, they pass away, the former spouse is still listed. And oftentimes there's a new spouse. And the new spouse is thinking perhaps that insurance policy, the proceeds will end up coming to them. Not necessarily the case. Life insurance policies in particular are contractual agreements And so that agreement will override, in most cases, whatever's on that particular beneficiary designation form is what's going to control. So keep in mind all those beneficiary designations. It doesn't matter how long you've had that particular policy. If you've had it a while, there's even more reason to keep a check on it and make sure your beneficiary designations are up to date. Making sure your retirement accounts, financial accounts, bank accounts, all those things need to be updated. And I will share with you even a personal story of having a family member who had life insurance, they had other benefits through their employer, and they had retired, and also they had remarried. They had a spouse earlier on in their career and they remarried later. When that person retired, they wanted to check on their beneficiary designations. All the paperwork came in to check off the retirement items, and they noticed their benefits still listed their mother and their sister, which had been that person's beneficiaries probably more than 20 plus years ago. That person actually had submitted updated beneficiaries. It was never changed. So if something had happened to that individual, the wife would not have received anything. It would have been the mom and the sister of that individual. And that's not what the individual wanted, because they had married and they wanted their spouse to receive those benefits. So it happens. We think we have done our part, but we have to keep checking on those beneficiary designations. Look them up. I would say, I get asked, how often should I do this? And you may have more of a standard rule behind that. So please feel free to chime in with that. I like to say I don't have a particular time frame for you to revisit that, but at a minimum, every year you should be checking on that. And I say that because I've lived through these experiences on a personal level, thinking it was updated and it actually wasn't. It had not been. I actually received an email a few months ago. I'm saying that I didn't have any beneficiaries on my life insurance policies. And I've been married now, it'll be 27 years in a few weeks. And so my spouse, my husband, was listed. He should have been listed. So I didn't understand why I didn't have a beneficiary, anyone listed. Something somewhere happened, changed positions, changed employers. Nothing stayed the same on my accounts. I updated that. So I say I don't give a hard, fast rule, but certainly want to check on them. If there's a major life event, of course, there's a birth, a death, there's a divorce, a marriage, retirement, health concerns, and chime in with what you recommend or suggest. But certainly I don't want to say anything further than like an annual checkup, because I've seen what happens when I actually put in information to make a change to beneficiaries and it didn't occur. So I will leave it at that. And I want to hear your take on it, if there's something you want to share on that as well.
Sure. Ideally, on an annual basis. Absolutely. And tie it to whether it's a birthday, whether it's an anniversary. You said you have an anniversary coming up, around something meaningful to you that's going to prompt you to just step back and look at things. I just had a conversation along these lines with a client probably a few weeks ago. And I said to her, I said, emphasizing the importance of just checking and rechecking the beneficiary designations, and for a different reason, though, not necessarily because your life circumstances may change and you haven't brought your requests up to date, but it's on the part of the provider. What if there's a technical glitch? What if there's a major software overhaul that affected and just wiped out all the beneficiary designations that had been in their database? It can happen. That is yet another reason why annual checkups. I wholeheartedly second your advice. Annual checkups are ideal. Just lay eyes on it, call.
Yes.
Be persistent. A lot of times we get lost in the web of dial 1 if you want to reach this department, dial 2 to leave you here. Be persistent and don't give up until you get an answer to your question. And you want to see it, confirm with the person on the phone, have them, if you have an online dashboard, look at it, see if what they're telling you is in fact correct, because it's too late.
Yes.
After you pass away, the insurance companies, the financial institutions, they will be in the right if they say your spouse is not listed, your former spouse, or in some cases where people have been married a couple times, your spouse from 2 times ago was listed, and there is nothing that you can do about it, as painful as it is. And I just want to drive this home because, particularly, again, focusing on our audience watching, like a lot of professional women, professional men too, we're so busy. We're life and family, and those of us who run businesses, there's that too, and organizations and community involvement, and we're going and we don't pause. Just take a moment for ourselves, right? And take a weekend, right? Take a weekend where you step back, and this is a me weekend. And you're like, let me just take a moment, have my coffee, have my tea, wake up on Saturday morning and just open. If you have an estate plan, which I hope those of you watching do, look at your portfolio. Are things out of date? Lay eyes on it to bring all those things to the fore. And then if there is something that needs to be updated, this will resonate with a whole bunch of you. Put it on your calendar. Yes. That you're going to place a call to the life insurance company, that if you need to place a call to the attorney that helped you with the estate plan before, book that call, make that appointment, put it on your calendar, because what if it's not on the calendar? It doesn't exist.
Yes.
And if we don't see it, it'll be out of sight, out of mind. So I am passionate along with you. I am carrying that torch right along with you, Aquanetta, about the importance of frequently, even a minimum annual basis, looking at those beneficiaries designations. And I love that you always have all these stories, these real examples to share, because that really hits home. Yeah, you mentioned before, you talked about scholarships, which I know for my clients, that topic definitely comes up, but I have to bring it up, right? Because we're not, by default, we're not thinking about it. You're thinking, okay, let me just take care of me and mine, right? And then I ask, are there scholarships? And then the light bulb goes off. And then it's like, yeah, I did graduate from such and such university, or I went to this college, and I want to be a blessing to the college. And so tell us about a scholarship story and how that worked out with one of your clients.
Yeah, scholarships are very important, as you mentioned, to a lot of folks, a lot of women in particular, wanting to give back, wanting to help the next generation. And what I have seen in my practice, I'm working with clients, I'm working with donors, they oftentimes want to give back in honor of someone, like a name scholarship in honor of their parents. They want to name a scholarship perhaps in honor of a loved one, someone else that was very close to them. So they fund the scholarship. There are many ways that a scholarship can be set up depending on the organization. So if you're going back to your college or university, your folks in the development office, they'll certainly have ideas and options for those scholarships. You can set up scholarships that will start to pay out from the scholarship immediately, or you can have them endowed. And so when the scholarship is endowed, those funds that you set aside to set up the scholarship will go into a pool or a pot of funds that are invested. And what those invested funds will generate, will spin off in income, will then go towards those scholarships. And so those endowed funds will be set up for perpetuity. So you could have your legacy, your story of giving back to help those students to go on really forever. So consider that when you think about a scholarship. I have seen donors who want to set up scholarships in honor of a mother. Perhaps the mother was a nurse or the mother was an artist, actual visual artist. So they want to set up something that would help a student. So there are many ways scholarships can be set up. I also want to mention the funding of a scholarship. So many people are probably thinking, how much will this cost? What will it take for me to set up a scholarship? Your college, your school, university, they will have certain amounts that would be needed to establish a scholarship. So consider that information and also know that you can have this to come through your estate. So you don't have to necessarily fund the scholarship today with today's dollars. Perhaps you feel more comfortable holding those dollars today during your lifetime, but you can certainly include in your trust, your will, your estate plan, you want to fund a scholarship. The terms of it, that should be worked out with that university, that college. But what I have seen repeatedly would be scholarships set up in honor of someone. Of course, individuals set them up to have them named after themselves. That's wonderful as well. But what I've seen the really heartwarming stories tend to come from people who will say, my mother made it to the 8th grade. She always promoted education for us. I want to make sure that I do this in honor of her. Stories like that, so that mom will always be recognized, her legacy will continue as well. So those are some of the heartwarming stories. Usually it's for mom or dad. In honor of them, they'll name a scholarship. And the funding part of it, assets that you include in your estate can be used to fund these scholarships. Real estate. There are some individuals, perhaps their children live away, their children, they don't necessarily want to move back home. So maybe there's a piece of real estate somewhere. The real estate eventually can go through your estate plan to be sold, and proceeds can go to establish a scholarship, or some of the proceeds even, or what's left or what remains of your estate, a percentage of your estate. Again, take care of your obligations, responsibilities, family, but you can also leave a percentage of what remains in your estate to set up that scholarship. And so keep in mind, if you're thinking, oh, I don't have that sort of funding right now, we can also think about planning it to go through your estate plan to be established at a later date when you no longer will need those funds in particular. Again, the real estate piece can be sold. Proceeds can be used to set up scholarships. And there are other assets as well that can be used to set up scholarships. The name of philanthropy and the game, so to speak, is that you want to think along the lines of how to make your gift happen. And you don't have to think of it in terms of your bank account. What is in your bank account? We're going to think about it as assets. What else do you own? And you'd be surprised. Consider that life insurance policy that we just talked about, and you passionately shared how important it is to keep it updated, those beneficiaries. Those are all considered assets. So we can think about funding scholarships, not just through your bank account. Certainly, if that makes sense for you, include that in your planning strategy, but also think about some of the other items that you own and how they can perhaps be sold and the proceeds used to establish or fund scholarships.
Aquanetta, now I want to just address something that we talked about during our show prep, and it goes a bit deeper into the emotions that are involved with charitable giving, and specifically what someone who is blessed to be in a position to even consider charitable giving has to deal with from, say, her own family, who says, you owe us. You wouldn't be where you are were it not for the sacrifices we made. So where are you getting these lofty notions of giving to this organization and that organization? And that really, that hurts. And I want to address it because I know like myself, there are women who are, especially women who, and men too, who are watching that have had to grapple with those feelings. So this is not talking about the mechanics of giving. This more like the emotions that are involved with giving. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, and the giving spirit, the generosity, communities of color in particular give more of their income percentage wise than any other group. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we just haven't really called it being philanthropic or philanthropy. We were just giving from the goodness of our heart. So continuing that sort of giving spirit, that giving energy is nothing new. We just need more of a plan around it. So, dealing with family members who may think, how dare you want to give that money away to some organization? What about us? What about taking care of what we need? Again, we absolutely want to take care of our family. We want to make sure we do what's right by them. And that is up to whatever you believe is best. Everybody's situation is different. But again, we don't have to think about everything going to charity or to a nonprofit. Perhaps that 10% model, which comes up a lot in charitable giving because it's a way of saying, I recognize there are other folks, there are other people that I want to take care of, but I also want to give back. So we can think of it in those terms. And it's very hard for most people to reasonably disagree with or dispute giving 10% to charity. They certainly can voice their opinions about that 10%, but reasonably, it's a very hard argument to have. So I believe in making sure we're taking care of those folks that we care about. We need to take care of what's best for them, but also being able to say, I'm also going to leave something to this organization because I'm passionate about it. I want to see these positive things happen. I want to make an impact beyond my lifetime. And so that's one way I've seen it addressed, that 10%. Of course, someone may decide to do more than that, certainly up to them and their circumstances. But I would give that sort of feedback to someone who would question why I would want to give my money or resources to a charitable organization. Going back to some of the things I mentioned earlier, like faith-based, if someone has been in that environment or their beliefs are giving back and faith-based, then that 10% discussion is really something we've heard of most of our lives. And so that's not a new concept for most people. I think it's easier to digest for folks.
Thank you. As we are drawing close to wrapping up this episode, and I honestly could speak to you for hours or speak with you for hours. I'm so enjoying this. What does legacy personally mean to you?
Legacy personally means to me giving back and helping others. I realize every day that where I am, what I do, it's an honor and it's a privilege. I've had insight into the lives of so many folks as clients, as donors. And what I have found, regardless of whether they are ultra high net worth or everyday working people working hard to take care of themselves and their families, their communities, what I found that common thread is that people want to really do well by others. They want to help others. So humanity is still very much around helping other people. And I think part of my legacy, I would like to be thought of as helping other folks to see how giving back really is, it makes me feel good. So I want to inspire and encourage other folks to also have those same feelings like you're helping someone else. And that's a good thing. So I want helping others to be my legacy, whether it's working through my clients or through donors. I want that to be part of Aquanetta Betts and her legacy of giving back, helping others to see how they can also join in giving back to make the world a better place.
What are 3 things you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
The first thing is philanthropy. That's you, that's me, that's us. That's all of us. It's not just for a particular wealth amount. That's all of us. That's philanthropy. So make sure we recognize that we too are all a part of philanthropy, not just the wealthiest of those around us. It includes all of us. That's the first thing. So dispelling that myth about it being a certain wealth amount you have to have before you are a philanthropist. I consider us all who give back philanthropists. That's first. Second, the legacy component. I want us all to recognize that we do not have to necessarily get rid of, give back everything we have currently today, our income today. Certainly, I suggest that we give back as much as we can while we are still here, but also recognize that we need a plan for continuing that giving back. So that's part 2, the second thing. Our giving needs more of a plan, more of a strategy around it to make our impact long after we're gone. The third thing is I want us all to appreciate the importance of estate planning. So estate planning is my first love professionally. So it is what I still love to do. I love to talk about it. As a licensed attorney in DC and Maryland, when I am not working with donors in that capacity, I like to give back through working at wills clinics or other legal services providers, giving back to those folks who perhaps may not have access to such resources. So the third one is estate planning is so important for all of us. It is not, again, just for someone else. It's for us. And what I usually say to folks, and it depends on what state you live in, but for the most part, if you're 18 years old, if you're breathing and you're competent, you need an estate plan. Of course, check with your advisors, your estate planning attorneys, reach out to one. And certainly, we're here now with a fantastic leader in the world of estate planning. So I want to leave with those 3 things. Philanthropy, that is all of us. And then, of course, the legacy giving, we need a plan for that to make our impact beyond our lifetimes, to continue that giving spirit. And then 3, appreciate the importance of having an estate plan.
Aquanetta, you've given us such a wealth of information just in the time that we've spent together today. And I know that individuals who are seeing this live or are going to see it on the replay, you've sparked something. You've caused us to consider, what is our plan if we don't have a plan? And for those of us who do, maybe I need to consider other charities as part of my plan. How can individuals connect with you, to work with you, and just continue the charitable giving conversation with you? I'm going to put a couple of sources on, but I know you're published, you speak. How can folks connect with you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I can be reached at johnsonbetts.com. You can check out the website there. There is a contact us page. You can go there, send me a message via that website. I work with nonprofit organizations. There's so many great organizations all around us. And oftentimes they're looking for additional ways to do their fundraising, increase their revenue, to continue their good works. But it takes funding. And so I work with them to bring new ideas, new strategies to help them increase their revenue streams or different types of fundraising. So you can reach out to me through the website, johnsonbetts.com. Also very active on LinkedIn at Aquanetta Betts. You can find me there. Feel free to send me a message. I'd be happy to chat. And again, I love the estate planning piece and the charitable giving piece. So I combine them in my work, and I'd love to chat and have more conversations around it. I think there's a lot more that we can do.
I love it. Everyone, Aquanetta Betts, founder and principal consultant of Johnson Betts LLC. Aquanetta, my friend, it has been, again, such a pleasure to learn from you, really. And that's one of the reasons that I have this platform, because I want to share it with experts like yourself who have a heart for giving, have a heart for education, because particularly in our communities, that's the missing piece. There's so much knowledge that's out there, but people don't know about it. There's so many resources, but we're just not connected to it. And we need great people like you to help us gain that knowledge, particularly about estate planning, charitable giving, all of it. So I am blessed to know you, to have you as a friend, but also as a resource, a powerful resource in my circle. So thank you so much. And thank you for being gracious with your time and joining me here today on the Wills Women and Wealth podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Lovely. Everyone, I'll see you next time. Stay informed, stay empowered, and take control of your legacy. I'll see you next time.